Hello, I am Minecraft Phenom 08, and this is episode 41 of my Billions and Billions challenge. In today's episode, I am going to be setting up a fusion reactor from the mod NuclearCraft, so let's get started. So the first thing that I should do is set down my modular storage unit here with a bunch of the things that I will need today. The first thing that I need to grab is the fusion core, some fusion connectors, and the fusion electromagnets. This is what we need to actually build the structure. So let's go ahead and set down the fusion core. I believe this is a 3x3x3 multi-block, if I remember right. So let's go ahead and place that down. That does look correct. And here's the GUI. If we look at it, it has energy stored, temperature, efficiency, and then I think these are input tanks, and then these over here are output tanks. Right now we're not going to worry about that stuff. Let's go ahead and set up the electromagnets, and the electromagnets need to be placed around the fusion core, and they need to be placed equidistant from the fusion core, and you'll see what I mean here in a second. Basically, we're going to be building a square ring, and we need the ring to be equally distant from the fusion core on all sides. And I need to figure out exactly how big I want this ring to be. I think I'm going to stop it right there. And then the ring will be constructed something like this with a hollow interior. And actually, let me make sure I'm at 1x1 here. So single block mode. So it's going to be hollow like this. I am going to be using a builder's wand, or a diamond wand rather, to actually build this out. So let me see here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these fusion connectors on all of the sides. So let's go ahead and do that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And this building is square for the reason that the ring is going to be square here. So that is 7, I believe. So let's go ahead and build this out. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, cool. So let's make this ring structure on all of the sides here, and then I can use my wand to actually, or my wands rather, to actually build this thing out and make it as big as it needs to be. So there we go, and the fourth and last side here. Okay, so let's get out the wand, and let's actually place it right here, because we do need to do a little bit of fine-tuning with the corners here. So we're just going to build this out, and let's build this over. And let's do that. And then on the corners here, we do need the interior to still be hollow there. So that's how we're going to do the corners. It's actually pretty easy, to be honest. It's not too difficult. So let's go ahead and connect these up. Do the same thing over here. And now we're about halfway done with the ring, which is pretty fantastic. And these wands are really, really nice to have. So let's do that. And I don't think my torches are getting in the way just yet. I will need to move some of them here in a minute, but we'll get to that when we get to it. And there we go with that. Let's connect those. And now we have a full ring. So let's go ahead and look at the GUI. It should. Okay, it says electromagnets not powered, because we do need to power them. So let's go ahead and drop off the electromagnets that we don't need anymore, and then the fusion connectors. Let's go ahead and grab our vibrant capacitor banks, because we do need to hook up the fusion core here to some power. So how I'm going to do that, I think, is, let me see here. I do have a vibrant capacitor bank right here. It runs up through this building here and runs out to my main capacitor. It is my main capacitor, rather. It's all just one giant structure here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend this out this way. So let's go ahead and dig a hole here. And let's do this. Let's just bring it over, and actually, you know what? I'm not sure that I do want to. Yeah, that'll work. This will work fine. Whatever. So we're going to hook it up right here. However, want this to be insert only, because I do need to pump energy into this reactor at some point. to give it a kickstart, but I don't want it to be able to pull energy from the main capacitor. I'm going to set up a separate system here. Okay, so as you can see, the fusion electromagnets, a few of them are being powered, and actually I don't want that to happen from this capacitor right here, so I'm just going to disable that right there. And then let's just extend this all the way over. And now this capacitor is hooked up to the fusion reactor. It should not be getting any power or anything, so that's cool. Let's put these away for right now. May or may not need more of them in the future. So let's go ahead and power up the electromagnets. How I'm going to do that is some cryostabilized flux duct here. And what I need to do is I need to power all of the electromagnets around. And I need to do that before I can actually start fusion, obviously. So let's go ahead and grab the cryostabilized flux ducts. And I think along the outside I'm going to do on the bottom, and then as in like say I'm going to run my flux duct clear around the bottom like this, and then on the interior it'll be on the inside up here. So let's go ahead and figure out where the capacitor is. So it is right here. I want this to be output. So let's go ahead and hook that up. So we should start seeing some of these electromagnets go green as they start getting power. And that is fantastic. That's exactly what I want to see here. So I just need to run this around the entire exterior of this reactor here. Sorry if I'm a little slow moving here. I just don't want to set my cryostabilized flux ducts where I don't want them. And you know what? I probably should have got rid of my wand here, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and exchange that for my crescent hammer, otherwise known as a wrench. I think it's funny that they call it a crescent hammer still, even though if I remember right, that was a mistake by the mod authors when they did that, but they just kept it around. It's one of those things, kind of like the Civilization Gandhi thing, if you know what I'm talking about. Anyways, so let's set this to be output. I think right here will be good. Did I do that quite right? Yes, I did. Cool. Anyways, if you've ever wondered why Gandhi is a war-hungry menace in the Civilization games, I suggest you look that up. It's quite funny. Anyways, so let's just run this around the interior of this ring here. And then we'll have to hit the corners here because, actually, never mind. I believe they kind of, the mod author kind of fixed that. In the past, you actually had to connect every single electromagnet to cryostabilized flux duct. And in fact, I'm probably still going to do that because I'm not super comfortable with that particular electromagnet getting power from other adjacent electromagnets. So what I typically do is I do something like this. To make sure that every single electromagnet is connected to a cryostabilized flux duct. If you have fusion going and one of your electromagnets goes down because it doesn't have power, plasma escapes, and then yeah, you're gonna have a bad time. And then your fusion will stop and you'll stop getting power. But anyways, the electromagnet should be powered up. So let's go ahead and see here. The toroid size is 8, and that's because I have 7 of the fusion connectors. The base size would be 1. For every fusion connector we have on each side, it just ups the toroid size by 1. The bigger the toroid size, the more fuel it will burn and the more power it will make. So that's a short explanation of that. So that is all good and dandy. Let's see how much power I'm actually losing. So these electromagnets are not super cheap to run, and I actually, okay, so it requires 200 RF per tick. So we are draining our main capacitor bank here a little bit, but the thing is, it does have quite a bit of power in it. So right now, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go underneath here, and I'm going to start punching out a bunch of blocks underneath here, because I'm going to need some access on the bottom side of this reactor. So this is stone. Where is my capacitor? It's right there. So I don't want to actually hit the reactor or the stone there, but I want to open up the rest of it. So what I need to do is I'm going to insert some liquids into this, and I think my first reactor is simply going to be a hydrogen-hydrogen reactor. just basically fusing hydrogen. And if I remember right, that will produce deuterium as the byproduct and only deuterium, so that's cool. So if I remember right, I do have filters on all of these, so that is cool. So what I'm going to do now is let's run upstairs. Let's get rid of my wands, some cobblestone. I don't need that anymore either, so let's grab some ender fluid conduit as well as some extract speed upgrades. I'm not sure if I will need those or not. Let's grab some filter upgrades as well, and let's grab some facades as well, might as well. So let's go back down here and let's set up the extract mechanism out of here, and so that we can get stuff into the reactor. So let's go ahead and hook it up right here, and I think we're just going to run this up, and we're going to run it through the ceiling. I think is just going to be the best way to do this. And let's actually go ahead and set up this end of it first. So if I remember right, as you can see here, we have 2 input tanks, and if I hook this up and tell it to be input, it would only actually empty into one of the tanks. And this is if I remember right. I'm not 100% sure on that. And actually, I can go ahead and test this. So let's just have one insert point for right now, and we'll actually have this be the insert point. Let's have this right here be an extract point. You know what? I don't even need to do that. This is fluid conduit. I can have both on the same thing. So let's disable the input there. Let's have the extract not enabled here, and same thing over here. Just for right now, I will probably enable that here in a minute, but I want this to be an insert point. Let's go ahead and add a fluid filter, and let's tell it to only allow in hydrogen. So let's set up this filter. So we need to make sure to grab the NuclearCraft version of hydrogen, and let's put it in there. It is whitelisted. And then we do need to extract the deuterium out of the reactor, and let's, what channel do I need that to be on? So, actually I need to go ahead and set a channel. So let's go ahead and tell this to be extract on the brown channel, this hydrogen, and will that work? I think it'll work. No, that will not work at all. That will not work at all. Don't do that. Don't do that, because the brown channel is actually hooked up to this. Oh wait, I think that's just for item conduit. Never mind. I was thinking that maybe I was burning a bunch of hydrogen here. No, it's fine. It's fine. Sorry about that moment of panic. I am going to throw in some extract speed upgrades because this reactor will burn quite a bit of hydrogen, so I don't want to not have enough of it. So let's go ahead and run this over. I will need to set this insert point to be on the brown channel. So let's see how this is going. So it did fill up both tanks. For some reason I thought it would only fill one of the tanks, but that's fine. And let's go ahead and tell this to extract on green. I believe all of the insert points are green for my hydrogen, deuterium, and oxygen tanks are green. So that should be fine. I don't think the fluid conduit actually... Okay, so it does actually come over here. Let me see here. Is this is on green channel, and that is... Okay, that's really interesting. I don't know why I set that up to be on green channel, but I don't think it's interfering with anything. Okay, so at this point, I can actually start to kickstart the reactor. And yeah, let's go ahead and do that. I do need to set this to be always on. I'm going to throw in speed upgrades just because we are probably going to be making quite a bit of deuterium. Each two hydrogen atoms that we fuse together, we get one deuterium. So basically, we're going to be making deuterium at half the rate that we're burning through the hydrogen. So to actually jumpstart this reactor, I need to set something up real fast, and actually I need to go back downstairs for this. So you know what? I'm actually going to not do this from down here. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and set up a jumpstart capacitor. And basically the capacitor's purpose is just going to be to jumpstart the reactor. And I do want to build this, let's say right don't know. I don't really know where this is. Let's build it right here. Whatever. So this capacitor won't be huge or anything, but what we're going to do is we are going to say insert from right there, and then we are going to output from right down here. And so I need to actually punch out a hole. Okay, so that is capacitor, that is capacitor. So it looks like the capacitor is actually right here. So what I need to do here is I need this to be an output. I need to grab some flux duct. And I don't need much. And I did set this to be input, yes. So I should be able to just put some flux duct there. And it should quickly fill this capacitor, at least at the maximum rate of 225,000 RF per tick. And then over here we are going to have output. And actually, I am not going to do it where I originally intended. I originally intended this to be output, but I'm actually going to do it right here. That way I don't have to move my torch. And I'm still going to have to move this torch, but that's okay. Oh shoot, I forgot about that. I need to disconnect that. So actually, I want to set this up to be only active with signal because I don't want this to be on yet, and I probably should have had that set up correctly here just a second ago, but that's okay. So let's go ahead and, oh shoot, I need to have these sides disabled of this capacitor right here. Okay, so that these flux ducts don't connect up. There we go. Okay, so this reactor already chugged up a bunch of power, and I'm not really sure why. Okay, so it... Okay, so I'm not really sure why it jumped up in temperature. Must have got power from somewhere, but it shouldn't have got power from the capacitor I just set up because it shouldn't be outputting. And these flux ducts don't actually hold any power themselves, so I'm not really sure why that happened. But anyways, so what I need to do is I do need to turn this capacitor on. So let's go ahead and do that. This should heat up the reactor. So that is happening. I might need to go grab a lever or make one. I can just make one. So let's actually make a few levers. Let's just make 8 levers. Why not? Okay, so I think at about 8,000 Kelvin, we can start up the reactor. And I'm not sure if it needs a lever or not to actually get started. I can't remember, to be honest. So where's my capacitor? It's right here. So yeah, we're draining this capacitor rather quickly, but it is rather large. So that shouldn't be that much of a problem. So I do want to be active with signal. Let's go ahead and turn this on. So we're almost to the 8,000 there. While we're waiting, I do want to go ahead and configure this so that I can see the I/O here. There we go. Much better. Okay, so we're almost to the point where we can start the reactor, and it is going. Oh, cool. I think they've added, or he's added the noise since last time. Not sure if you can hear that. But it sounds kind of cool. Anyways, this reactor won't produce that much power just yet. Actually, it's producing nothing. So I do want to go ahead and turn this off. And I do need to run downstairs and set up my extraction because apparently I did not actually turn that on. Yep, I didn't actually turn it on. So let's see here. Okay, the tanks are empty. As you can see, the temperature is rising rather quickly, but we're still not producing any power. And I'm not sure how fast the power will ramp up. Okay, so as we can see here, the temperature change is 49,999 Kelvin per tick. Is that correct? Yes, because the temperature as shown on the GUI right here is kilokelvins. So the next thing I want to do is, I think I want to set up some cooling for the reactor, but I don't want to do that just yet. Okay, we have 1 RF per tick, so yeah. Obviously, this reactor is running a pretty big net deficit at this point. Something like maybe 30 or 40,000 RF per tick, because that's what it takes to actually power up the electromagnets. I'm actually going to wait for this reactor to start to ramp up just a little bit. And while I'm away, I'm going to clean up some of the holes in the floor here. And when I come back, hopefully the reactor will be up a little bit in terms of power production. And I may go ahead and set up a cooling system for the reactor. And that is a system that will help keep the reactor in its best or its most efficient range. And if we look at the recipes here, the different combinations of fuels have a different optimal temperature. Basically, if you add cooling to your reactor, and you don't have to do this at all, if you add cooling to the reactor, you can actually get the reactor to stay at its optimal temperature pretty much once it gets up to that temperature, and that's definitely something I want to do. So I am going to wait on this to ramp up. I'm going to clean things up, and once all that has happened, I will be back. So the reactor is still in the process of heating up, but it has heated up a little bit. So our efficiency right now is actually at about 4%, and we are producing around 14,000 RF per tick, and that number is actually climbing fairly quickly. As we can see, the temperature is also climbing fairly quickly. And if we go right here to the temperature gauge, we can see that the temperature change is actually coming down. And once the fusion reactor gets to its most efficient point, the temperature change should be, I think, at 5,000 Kelvin per tick. Let me double check this. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start to set up the cooling mechanism. So if we go into the active fluid cooler, which is how we are going to be cooling the electromagnets here, and how we are going to be cooling the fusion reactor, basically you pump a coolant into this block to cool down fission fusion reactors. Must be placed in a fission structure or on the diagonal of a fusion ring. So basically in these empty block spaces right here. Let's go back to the description. Blah, 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 blah. The requirements for each fluid type are the same as the passive counterpart for the fission reactors, that is, but active coolers can not be used to support other coolers placement rules. If used to cool a fusion reactor, it is much more efficient for a cooler to have a partner on the exact opposite side of the entire fusion ring. So basically, if I put, let's say if I put coolers here and here, and obviously I'm going to be using water in these coolers because it's really easy to come by. I can make it with these infinite water source blocks. It makes it even more efficient. Let's actually take a look at the stats here. As we can see, the active cooling rate is now 50 Kelvin per tick, and that shows up as 1%. So it might actually be 10,000. I'm not sure what cooling rate we need to get to, but basically we need that percentage to be 100%. Once that gets to 100%, the cooling rate that is, the temperature will continue to change until the reactor gets to its most efficient point, and then it will stop. Basically, it will just settle in its most efficient range, and therefore I will be able to make the most amount of power from my reactor without actively having to do anything to turn it off and turn it back on to keep the temperature within a certain range, as you might normally have to do if you did not have cooling. So as we can see right now, we have 50 Kelvin per tick of cooling. Now if we add these coolers over here, it should increase by more than just 50 additional. If I have this correct. So maybe I don't. So let me try to set up coolers over here. So right here and here. Maybe that'll satisfy the requirement of being on the exact opposite side. Not so much. So I'm not exactly sure. Maybe they want it to be where my flux duct is, and that's just not going to happen. So basically, I need to set up a bunch of these coolers to get the active cooling rate to be 100%. So let's continue, and let's just throw a bunch of them up. And that's actually, this might work out really, really well as far as from a planning perspective here. Actually, it would be better if I did something like this. This will make things a little bit faster if I place down blocks like this. And I'm pretty sure that I won't go over 100% by filling this bottom ring here. I've been wrong before though, so. Okay, so we're almost there. And luckily, the reactor size is actually very conducive to that pattern. So let's see here. Where are we at? We're at 25%, which is not nearly good enough. So I'm going to fill this outer ring here, but the thing is, I don't think I'm actually going to be able to have enough of the water coolers anyways to get the reactor to be at its most efficient point, which is kind of a bummer. But at the same point, even if we're just a little bit inefficient, as long as we're close to that efficiency band, I think we'll be all right. So actually, I'm going to get rid of this entire outer ring here. And I need to be super, super careful right here not to destroy any of the electromagnet ring, because that would be a bad time. So let's actually get rid of everything here and start on the corner. Okay, so where are we actually? 1200. So we got to 24% using the inner ring, which is not great. Okay, so let's see. Does this actually get a valid pattern? Not really. If we take out this, if we just kind of ignore this middle block, then we can get a usable pattern here. So I think that's what I'm going to do. So basically my pattern is going to come from the corner. Okay, there is a mob somewhere. Okay, so we're just going to replicate this pattern across the other three corners. I'm going to go ahead and do this off camera, and once I have that done, I will be right back. So I finished the outer ring of the coolers, and I'm still not even close to the active cooling rate target of having 100%. So I've decided that I'm actually going to go in a different route. In addition to using a bunch of water, I'm actually going to be tearing out some of it. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So I'm going to be, let's tear out that many coolers. And let's do the same in this direction, I think. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to place down a bunch of these coolers again. And instead of using water, I'm going to be using something else. I'm going to be using magnesium. So the thing is, the coolers, if I remember right, and actually let me actually just type in cooler. So if we use something other than water, the cooling rate is actually much, much better than, say, the regular coolers in the fission reactor. So for example, the water would do 60 heat per tick, whereas, let's find the magnesium, would do 110. If I remember right, in the active coolers, the magnesium will do much, 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 much better than just barely or not quite doubling the water. So what we're going to do is I have an ender chest here. It's set to pink, pink, pink. And at my main base, I have an export bus set up to export magnesium ore. So we're going to set this up right here. This is filled with magnesium ore, and I'm going to be using a melter. Let's set that right here. Let's go ahead and plop in a bunch of upgrades, and let's go ahead and set up the ender fluid conduit here. So what we're going to do is, and actually I need item conduit, I think. Do I have item conduit with me? I don't think I do. So yeah, I need item conduit, so let me run back and grab that very, very quickly. Hopefully nothing goes awry here, so let me see. There we go. I actually only needed one, but I figured it's just as easy to grab half a stack, and I can put the rest of it back when I'm done. So let's go ahead and hook up this item conduit. We just simply need this to be extract, always on. This needs to be insert always on, and this melter will accept the magnesium ore and melt it down into molten magnesium. So let's check out the cooling rate right now. We are at a cooling rate of 2400 because I did take out some of those water coolers. Let's go ahead and hook up some of these active fluid coolers here. And so what we're going to do is we are going to have this to be an extract point only. Let's go ahead and set this to be insert. And okay, so the tanks are able to share between them. So as you can see, if you look at the interface or the top part of the screen, the tanks of all of these are being filled. So let's see what our cooling rate is at now. So we're actually way too high. So we're at 444%. We do not want to be that high. So I do need to take away some of these coolers. So that's fantastic. This is going to be a really good cooling system. So I'm not sure how many of these coolers I need to take away, but it's most of them. So let's do 3 on either side for right now. And I actually think I'm going to need to do more than that. Okay, so I didn't even do that. Yeah, I did. I did that equivalent. So what are we at? So we're still way too high. So that's actually really good that's able to cool so much. So that is, oh, wow, that's, heck, if I stay with one, if I do something like, actually, if I do something like, let's go ahead and grab this crescent hammer. So I didn't realize it would actually provide that much cooling. I thought it would be a lot, but not like that, obviously. So let's set this up to be insert. This will be extract. This will always be on. And let's get rid of 2 of these 3 here. So let's see. So we're still... Okay, so if I add one more, I'm gonna be way too much cooling, but if I add... you know what, it's probably okay. If I run it like this, I have more... Okay, so I don't have... Okay, so apparently it was just a little bit late on updating. So I probably should add... I'm gonna go ahead and add 2 more. I'm gonna have way too much cooling. Which means my reactor won't operate in its most efficient range, but it'll operate pretty close to its efficient range. Okay, so I'm just going to hope that this is accurate at this point. So the active cooling is going to be a little bit much. It will eventually settle. It won't be in its most efficient range, but it'll be pretty close. Right now, we're already at 28% and still climbing fairly rapidly. Obviously, the temperature is still rising very quickly. As you can see, the temperature change total is 29,000 Kelvin per tick, so that's pretty good. I think I'm going to leave this as is. I am producing 103,000 RF per tick. One thing I should note is I'm actually running a hydrogen deficit at this point. If we go over here and take a look, that is pretty apparent just from taking a very quick peek at this black hole unit here. I will need to add some more electrolyzers between episodes, but that is not really a big deal, to be honest. I can add them over against the other wall. I think it's probably where I'm going to put them, and then I can just hook up the system through the conduit I have in the floor here. I can just run this all the way across and down here, and then across this wall here, and I can have all my electrolyzers along this wall. And yeah, everything should work just fine if I do that. Obviously, we are getting a lot of deuterium at this point, which is really fantastic because in the future I am going to be using that in more fusion reactors. But basically, this reactor is already making quite a bit of power, even though it's only at 30% efficiency. The electromagnets, I think, take somewhere around 40,000 RF per tick. So right now, this is running a surplus of 60,000 RF per tick, about 70,000 RF per tick, actually. So that's really fantastic. That's going to allow me to build a bunch more of the tier 6 void ore miners in the basement here. So that's going to be fantastic. So I think that's a pretty good wrapping up point. So in today's episode, I set up this fusion reactor. I built the electromagnets. It is set to hydrogen-hydrogen, which is a decent fuel combination, but definitely not the best. Out of the fuels that I have right now, though, it's definitely the only thing that I can provide in substantial amounts to the reactor. If I tried to do deuterium, for example, I wouldn't have enough deuterium, not even close. I also set up the cooling system around the rings here. I tried to go completely with water at first, and that was an epic fail. I wasn't even close to the target rate of 100% active cooling. And so I went ahead and set up this magnesium system, which actually provides a crap load of cooling. The thing was, I wasn't using this magnesium ore for anything in my other base, so I might as well use it for cooling system right here. So that's fantastic. Anyways, if you enjoyed today's episode, feel free to drop a like down below. And if you enjoy watching automation type stuff in modded Minecraft, definitely consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. Anyways, signing off, I am Minecraft Phenom 08, and I will see you next time.